Reno native David Wise is the best in the world at what he does.
Right side, 10-8.
Coming off a gold medal performance last week at the X Games, which saw him pull off a run the sport has never seen.
That is the first time I have ever seen somebody spin all four-way double corks in a super pipe.
He appears to be primed for an Olympic repeat in Pyeongchang.
Olympic finals are about to go down. I have a feeling today's going to be a really good day.
David Wise hasn't landed a run in the first two.
This has happened before for Wise. He's crashed on both his runs.
When I went into that last run, I just kind of smiled at the half pipe and said, all right, God, I'm going to go try. I have one more chance.
If you're not looking at your television, look right now.
David Wise with a big run right there.
I was the kid that liked to jump off things. I was the daredevil kid that you could dare to do just about anything, and if I had enough incentive, I would try it. The first time that I saw a super pipe, I was competing on the Alpine Meadows freestyle team. The resort had built this big, tall half pipe. That day I had gotten to ski with the older kids. So I was riding up the chairlift with the older kids, and I remember them saying, oh, let's have a height contest. Let's see who can go the highest. And I was thinking to myself, this is my moment. This is my moment to shine. Even though I've never really been in a half pipe that big in my life, I'm gonna send it. So they all went pretty big, and I was like, all right, here we go. And I just sent it as fast as I could, ended up landing in the bottom of the transition and smashing my face off my knee so badly that my right eye swelled shut. But I won the height contest, and that was the beginning of half pipe for me. I started out skiing and competing on a national level at age 13.
Here comes David Wise.
Free skiing is a very unique sport in the sense that you can turn pro at age 12 or 13. If you haven't gone pro by 18, 19, 20, then you're probably not gonna make it. And I remember when I was a 15-year-old kid, some of my friends that I competed with turned pro. They got pro contracts, they got to go to all the big competitions, and all I could have was envy because I was like, well, obviously my skills are at or close to these guys because I beat them from time to time. So why aren't I getting these contracts? It was a frustrating time for me as a young athlete. I signed my first pro contract when I was 18. My first couple years of being pro were different than I expected them to be. I kind of thought that I was gonna sort of turn pro overnight, where it was like, okay, you'll enter some competition and you'll do really well, and then all of a sudden you'll be making a lot of money. But it wasn't like that. I had to do well in one, and then do well in another one, and then do well in another one, and then finally I signed some paying contracts. And between my barely paying contracts and all of the competition winnings, I was just barely breaking even. But I was making money skiing, and I thought that was the best thing ever. I had my breakout career year when I was 21. So it took me a whole lot longer than my friends who turned pro at age 15. I'm thankful for it having taken quite a few more years because that process of just chipping away and getting fourths and fifths rather than firsts and seconds, it gave me the chance to develop who I was as a person. One of my biggest struggles in life has been figuring out how to define myself outside of skiing. I was so dedicated to being the best skier that I could possibly be that I would oftentimes lose my identity in that. I always felt God's pull on my life. I always felt this draw to do things that were bigger than myself, but only for split seconds. And then I would go back into hyper-focus mode and I would wake up in the morning and I would spend the entire daylight hours figuring out how I could be a better skier. Everything except my skiing was suffering. It was always when I was right on the cusp of where I really felt like I was gonna be able to win a lot of competitions was when I would get injured. My first knee injury, getting my ACL reconstructed and being stuck on the couch for 6 months was to me the worst thing that could possibly happen. I was so distraught about the fact that I couldn't do what I love to do and what I felt like I was made to do and what I should do. Ironically, that's when I met my wife.
You don't need to prove anything. Oh man.
Rio's like, I'm like, oh no. I think I had a mental refocus. Honestly, I figured out that life was bigger than this game I was playing on a pair of skis. I redefined who I was as just David rather than David the skier, and it freed me up. It took the pressure off, and I went on a hot streak, and I was finally able to, I feel like, cash in on all these skills that I had been relentlessly building for years. I won 3 X Games in a row.
David Wise is on a mission. Back-to-back gold medals for David Wise. That's the epitome of perfection there.
I was the first guy to qualify for the Olympic team. Then I got to cap it all off with an Olympic gold medal.
David Wise is the Olympic champion.
It's like I stepped onto a rocket going into Sochi and just got to meet all these rich and famous people and do all kinds of cool things and TV shows. And for my 15 minutes, I got to live this famous lifestyle and really experience everything that comes along with athletic success. I was making more money than I ever thought I would make skiing. I was at the top. Then the rocket reached its zenith and just... When you win a gold medal, everybody wants to be your friend. And it's really easy to forget that these people aren't your friend because of you. They're your friend because you have an Olympic gold medal. I just completely lost focus on skiing and on being as good of a dad as I could possibly be and being a very good husband. And I was just caught up in the hustle that the world was trying to get me caught up in. The 2 seasons following right after Sochi were 2 of the least successful competitive seasons of my career. The athletic success and the fame and glory and the money that came along with it, they all kind of faded. And they faded more quickly than I thought was possible. But once they faded, I realized that I still had a lot to be thankful for. Some people abandoned ship and didn't support me, but some people did. So the people that I knew were with me, I knew were in it for the long haul. And once I started feeling myself again, I had so much more appreciation for being out there on skis. It sort of gave me this ammunition going into that competition season. Going into the Olympic season in Pyeongchang, I kind of got on a hot streak. I was the first guy to qualify for the Olympic team again and won the X Games right before and just got to ride that wave again. And I thought that the story was going to go in Pyeongchang exactly how it went in Sochi, where I was coming in on a hot note, winning everything, and just, land my first or second run, and that's going to be it, walk away with the second Olympic gold medal. The finals came around and the conditions were perfect, the weather was perfect. I could not have been more excited to ski that day. On my first 2 of 3 runs, my skis came off of their own accord. I really had to have this moment with God at the top of the halfpipe getting ready for my 3rd run where I was like, is this really how the story goes? Is this really how you planned it? You got me through all that hard stuff just to fail here? I felt like the answer that I got from him was, is this failure? It's interesting how society defines success in these things that happen in such short spans of time. I get 30 seconds per run to do my absolute best. And if I define myself only by how well I do in those 30 seconds, I'm potentially nothing. But the reality is God sees success as a life well lived. It's not the moments that define us, it's who we are that define us. I've always had this tradition of writing something on my sleeve for major competitions. It's my mantra for the year. That year going into Pyeongchang, I wrote, I cannot fail because it's not my victory, it's God's victory. And that was the last thing I looked at right before I dropped in. It was a good reminder for me, like, even if you crash on this run, even if you don't get to do the run that you intended to do, you still can't fail. I just kind of smiled at the half pipe and said, all right, God, I'm gonna go try.
David Wise, Olympic champion from Sochi. This Olympics, he hasn't delivered, but sometimes the greats deliver under the biggest of circumstances.
Starting it off, going huge, and then into the left side, double cork 12. David is putting it down in run 3. The right 1080, he had problems with that in run 1, and then the switch left, double 1080. What does he have at the bottom? A right side, double cork 1260. And David puts it down in run 3.
Under pressure, people doubting David Wise, his quality, the way that he can execute. He's just given everyone a very, very clear answer in his performance.
If I win, it's God's victory. And if I lose, it's God's victory. So, man, it was just so freeing. And that was part of what gave me the ability or the mentality to drop into that third run and say, all right, if I crash on this run, so be it. That's God's story. But if I land it, then I know that I couldn't have done it all on my own. I came off of this high note and went right into sort of a low note. The year following the Olympics, I shattered my femur in 3 places and went from one moment having so much fun, loving being a professional skier, to the next moment realizing I may never ski again. We're just over a year out from that now, and I'm still struggling with pain. The biggest lesson I'm walking away with in this season of brokenness is realizing that being broken is okay, because admitting that you're struggling, that you're having a hard time, is pretty similar to saying, God, I need you. I had this great plan and all these things that I wanted to accomplish, and God was just kind of like, well, no, none of those things. Actually, you're gonna shatter your femur and you're gonna go through some really, really hard times personally, but on the other side, you're gonna be so much more full of joy. It's just gonna be an amazing story. If I look back at 15-year-old me and the script that I wrote for my life, I don't think it had any hard times on it. I think it just had all fame and glory and just making it rain. But that would have been such a boring story. Even though it went differently than I wanted it to, even though it went differently than I planned it, it went better. And some of the things that I was most angry about, the injuries, the hard times, some of those things were the most important things that happened. I feel blessed, I feel loved, I feel like I'm part of a bigger story than just winning a contest here and there and trying to write my name in the stars. I'm part of the King of the Universe's story. It's pretty spectacular when you think about it like that. Hey, I'm David Wise, and you're watching This Is Me TV.